Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbidi Books. My name is Ellie and today I'm going to be filming a book review video. So I am going to be reviewing Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. This is a book that I read recently this month and I thought it would be fun to film a dedicated video where I talk about my thoughts and feelings about this story. I am quite new to doing book reviews here on YouTube, so please bear with me. I'm going to try and keep this spoiler free, but I do just want to preface this video by saying I will be talking about some of the tropes and some of the common themes that are in this story. So if you're the kind of person who likes to go into a book completely blind, you might want to click off this video and perhaps come back once you've read the story for yourself. But don't worry, I won't be talking about any major spoilers or any major plot points in this video. So what is this book about? So this is a standalone adult fantasy, and in this story we follow our main character Wallace Price, who is a very successful lawyer, and he's also a pretty terrible person. He treats people around him terribly, he is very selfish, he doesn't really care about the consequences of his actions, and his entire life revolves around his work. Think Scrooge from A Christmas Carol, because that's who I was picturing when I first read this book. And the story kind of takes off when Wallace one day unexpectedly dies of a heart attack and is very surprised to find himself at his own funeral, where he meets his reaper, who takes him to this tea shop which acts as a kind of way station for the dead who aren't quite ready to pass on yet. And so the majority of this book takes place in this quirky tea shop where Wallace meets his ferryman, who is a man called Hugo, who has dedicated his entire life to helping people come to terms with their death so that they can pass on to whatever comes next. So when Wallace first arrives at the tea shop, he's very much kind of in denial about his situation. He considers his death just a big inconvenience that's getting in the way of his very important work. And throughout the story, we kind of follow him on his journey towards kind of accepting his reality, and we see him discovering what is actually meaningful and truly important to him. Now, I think quite a lot of people might be coming to this story off the back of The House in the Cerulean Sea, which is another standalone adult fantasy book which was written by the same author, and I can definitely see some similarities between the two stories in terms of the writing style and also TJ Klune's trademark humour, which is absolutely present in both books. But although I would describe Under the Whispering Door as an uplifting story, I will say I don't think it's quite as light-hearted and as whimsical as The House in the Cerulean Sea, because it does tackle some heavier themes. So we are discussing sort of death and grief and depression and things like that in this story. So I would recommend, as always, checking out the content warnings before you go into this book. But what I will say is I think TJ Klune has a fantastic way of offsetting some of the heavier topics with his comedy and with his humour, which is something that I really enjoyed in this book. This book had me laughing out loud at times as well as shedding a few tears, and there was one scene in particular actually that revolved around a Ouija board that I just thought was absolutely hysterical. If you've read the book, you'll know what I mean. But I do think that a lot of the humour comes from the banter between the different characters, and the different characters in this story were all fantastic. I loved them all. So in the tea shop, of course, we've got the ferryman Hugo, who is the most kind-hearted, warm, compassionate man that you will read about. We've also got the reaper May, who is this really sarcastic, funny young girl who's fiercely loyal, and she's just full of vitality and she just jumps off the page. We've also got a resident ghost, who is this old man called Nelson, who is always kind of getting up to no good, and he's just absolutely hilarious. And we've even got a resident ghost dog, who is actually Hugo's old pet, and he is just such a lovable, lick-happy, friendly little companion to have in the tea shop. So yes, all of the characters in here are absolutely fantastic. TJ Klune really knows how to write that kind of found family dynamic within his stories, and this definitely has that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get in House in the Cerulean Sea. Okay, I'm going to put the book down for a minute because it's starting to hurt my hand a little bit there. But we also have a queer love story in this book, which is really lovely to see. It's very sweet. But what I will say is I did find the romance a little bit difficult to believe at first, and would have liked just a little bit more page time dedicated to kind of seeing the different characters' feelings grow towards each other, because it did feel like quite a sudden shift, and I found it quite difficult to understand why our love interest interest fell for Wallace when he's such an unlikable character in the beginning, because it does happen quite quickly. So yes, I would have just loved there to be a little bit more time spent seeing that transition and seeing the characters' feelings develop towards each other. I would also say that while this book does discuss some pretty big topics, you know, it talks about death and grief and mental health, I do feel like it talks about them on quite a superficial level, and there just isn't enough time within this particular story to delve any deeper than that. And for that reason, I think that some of the messages within this story about, you know, coming to terms with your death and moving on from grief and trying to be a better person just felt for me a little heavy-handed at times, and I don't feel like this book really added anything new to the discussion. But that being said, I do think this book had a lovely sentiment, and I did enjoy some of the conversations that were had between the characters and some of the messages that were conveyed, even if they were a little bit cliched and a little bit repetitive at times. In terms of world building, the majority of this book takes place in this quirky tea shop, which is really well described. I absolutely love that. But I will say the tea shop is actually part of the real world, which I was surprised about. So it is less fantastical and whimsical and magical than I was expecting going in. I will also say there were a lot of conveniences in the plot line, and there were quite a few things that were left not particularly well explained or not fully explained, but I don't personally feel like that was an issue, because I don't feel like this story in particular needed a really watertight, you know, really rigorous setting and situation, because it just provided kind of a backdrop really to explore Wallace's journey and some of the themes that were discussed in this book. And I was definitely willing to sort of suspend my disbelief at times just to have a good time and to enjoy the story. That being said, my only major complaint really with this book was the ending. Now I'm a little bit conflicted, because I did find the ending satisfying, but I also think that it would have been more poignant to end things in a slightly different way. Obviously this is quite difficult to talk about without going into spoilers, but essentially I think that the way that things wrapped up kind of took away a little bit from the progression that was made in the book and some of the messages that it was trying to convey. But that being said, overall I really enjoyed this book. I laughed, I cried, and I will definitely remember the story for a long time. So I would definitely recommend this to you if you're looking for something that has a very kind of soft exploration into grief and mental health. And if you're looking for something that has that heartwarming, fuzzy, warm feeling that you got from House in the Cerulean Sea, and also something that is peppered with Klune's trademark humour, I think that you will really enjoy this one. Please let me know if you have read this book. I would love to have a chat with you down in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? What were your thoughts and feelings? And if you have any books that you would like me to review, please also drop them down below, because I'm always looking for ideas for videos and also book recommendations, and I really value your suggestions. So yes, that's it from me for today. I really hope you enjoyed this quick review video, and I guess I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!